Hi friends, and welcome back to another Legion Tower Defense 2 video. Today's video will be to help promote Tohoko's terrific 1v1 tournament. I don't know about you guys, but I loved the 1v1 game mode, and instead of waiting until the season is over for it to come back, I decided to bring it back in the form of a community tournament. 16 players will battle it out in a one-day single elimination tournament. Don't feel too bad though if you lose, as there is a loser's bracket to determine third place. Players are fighting it out for an incredible $400 worth of premium essence, split between first, second, and third place. Not a player, but a viewer? I plan to give out $10 of essence to 2 random people watching the series on my channel using the Nightbot raffle mechanic. I'll have the rules, player lists, and Challonge Link in the description as well. With that out of the way, I want to show off one of the most insane 1v1 games I've ever watched. I've been running them on my stream recently to prepare for the tournament, and this is one of the more exciting ones. We have 2 high elo players who did a gentleman's agreement to both lock in and start with an antler. The early game is pretty boring, so I'm going to speed through the first couple of waves. But trust me friends, it gets much more exciting around wave 5. No snails or saving on wave 1, as they both knew it was going to be the antler open, and though it's not the greatest unit to open with, it can't really leak on wave 1 or 2, because nobody has any workers, and it's a little too beefy. Wave 2, both players have enough to go for the king up after income, but only red goes for it. And king ups are very important in 1v1s, as the king has much lower health, and any leaks can do a large amount of damage. Wave 3, because yellow didn't go for a king up after income on wave 2, and doesn't want to starve himself out of the game, has to send that snail, giving red a bit of extra money. If you have the right DPS units, the antler is very hard to leak until around wave 7, especially with how low the workers are, and nobody wants to starve until then. Red drops a harpy for some DPS, which is pretty much all you need with an antler, and yellow drops a skeleton, which is most likely just a shift as it's not on the antler, and both players just full hull. Wave 4, we finally start to see some workers come out. Red drops another harpy and a slime siren with 6 workers. Yellow pushes to 7, which might be in danger, but I assume he just sells his skeleton for the gun or halo for wave 5, which he really needs to do because right now he's just running some support tanks, which don't do all that much damage themselves. Yellow goes incoming king, while red sends his snail and then saves the rest of his mythium. Nobody leaks, and it's time for wave 5 and our first oopsie-daisy. Both players pushed only 1 worker off that wave 4, but remember that yellow is already at 7 as he pushed an extra 1 last wave, and undervalue on that wave 4. He should expect that snail send not to be all of red's mythium, and needs to respect a bigger send here. Since he went to 8 workers, he actually can't afford the gun or the halo, even with selling the skeleton and the looter. He ends up adding whatever he can, and has to hope that it's enough. Unfortunately for him, it goes about as bad as it can go. Because of his split, his skeletons go straight onto the fiend, the worst possible situation. After his units kill the boss, they should go straight for that fiend, and his only real damage is that antler, which is impact, so if he gets stuck on that fiend, he's definitely not going to kill anything else, resulting in a massive leak. And that's exactly what happens. Remember, in 1v1s, the king has way less HP, and there's nobody to cover for you if you do leak, so if it's too much, you'll take a lot of king damage and give your opponent a lot of gold. Wave 6, and red goes for another fiend. He's thinking that yellow probably push off that wave 5, and that he can leak him again. Yellow knows this and doesn't push, and finally adds that Gatling gun. Red upgrades his slime into a slime siren, which is good for both 6 and 7. The gun destroys the fiend, which is nice because the antler does some pretty okay impact damage this early, and doesn't have to waste attacks on the fiend. His gun almost smurfs, and probably would have been a full hold, or just 1 Rocco if it had. Another leak for yellow, and things are starting to look a little dangerous. Wave 7, and yellow feels like he needs to make a big play to get back into the game. He skipped sending on both wave 6 and 7, and 5 and 6 were longer waves because of the 2 leaks, and red is starting to get a little nervous and decides to use his reroll. He decides to go with the Trinity Archer and get rid of the harpies. He puts one of them down just in case he needs it for the wave 8 if yellow does not send here. He also goes for a full send of snails. Yellow has been saving him for a bit and has leaked the past 2 waves, so red figures if yellow does skip again, he will be severely undervalued and might leak big again. No sun comes out into red, so let's check on how yellow is doing. My goodness, this man is insane. He's 165 undervalue and gets full send, but this gun split is just way too good. He definitely should have leaked most of this wave, but really holds quite well for the situation. The leak also gives him enough time to get the Ghost Knight on income. Wave 8 and red has a decision to make. If he gets the Trinity Archer here, then he will most likely either hold or get a very small leak, but if he gets skipped again, it makes him very weak on wave 9. He decides he wants to be stronger on 9 and goes for the Soul Gate. What he doesn't know is that yellow is sending a Ghost Knight here. Besides the unupgraded archer and the harpies, he does not have any pierce to kill that ghost knight very fast. Let's see how it goes. This is why I love 1v1s. Normally, with an ally, you can help protect each other on your weak waves, but in 1v1, you don't have that, and it becomes very interesting. Red dropped the archer on wave 7 and was trying to bait a wave 9 send, so he went with the soul gate instead of upgrading the Trinity archer. Yellow didn't fall for the ruse and still sent even though it could be into a full Trinity archer, which basically solos wave 8. All things considered, Red actually does pretty well here. His Slime Siren almost got full mana off, which would have severely lowered the amount leaked. Red gets a 64% leak, but full resent into Yellow and gets him almost as much. It really isn't looking good for Yellow at this point, who is one decent sized leak away from losing, and Jules is giving him an 11% chance to win at this point. There's no way he can come back and win this, right? Wave 9 and Red is feeling himself. He pushes to 15 workers and goes for a full resend. Yellow stays at 11, doesn't send, and just upgrades his Harbinger, which is one of the best units in the game for this wave. Because Red's gun doesn't split tank at all here, he actually goes for a small leak, and it doesn't really do any king damage, but it does take a bit of pressure off of him. He also doesn't push at all, as both All Out Assault and Overwork are in the game, and he needs to be careful with that low king HP. For most of the rest of the game, we are going to be focusing on what Yellow does. Wave 10 and Yellow drops a Halo, as he does not have enough gold for the Vulcan Cannon, and it's still really good for the wave. Nobody sends, and we have to expect that Overwork or All Out Assault play. Wave 11, and fortunately for Yellow, he has the option for Dark Ritual. With how low his king is, it barely takes away any HP, but is still pretty risky as it might be the difference between his king living and dying. Also, he felt like the Dark Ritual gold was enough, and still saved his Mythium. Remember, he hasn't sent since that wave 8. He uses the money to upgrade into a Vulcan Cannon and another Pack Rat just for any sort of tank value. The send comes and it's a big 380 all-out assault with Pack and Imps. Red probably thought the Halo was getting upgraded here instead of the Vulcan and sent Imps to help kill his tanks and stall the Halo for a bit. It does seem to be working as it takes a long time for Yellow's units to get through that Pack and Imps, but with one final doggo from the Harbinger and the insane split tank of the Halo and the gun, he kills just enough units for it not to be fatal. It's so close, but not enough. Yellow lives with an incredible 3% HP. That Dark Ritual really is scary as it gave him enough gold to hold just enough not to die, but also made it very close by lowering the King's HP. Any more and it would have just ended there. Wave 12 and we see our first worker push from Yellow, though it is just one. He expects Red when AoA, as Overwork is normally used on a Wave 12 send. He actually hunts all of his rats as well. At this point he has to take some huge risks if he wants a chance of winning this game. If it was Overwork instead of AoA, this would be incredibly dangerous and probably just be game over, but Yellow goes for a solo dino and no king ups. At this point, if I was Red, I would probably try to save and match whenever he thinks Yellow is sending, or go for income king to be as strong as possible when the send does come. Yellow does just hold though, and the game continues. Wave 13 is another big play from Yellow. Most people will get nervous and upgrade the Halo for Wave 13. But since Red sent a dino on Wave 12, and has been starved since Wave 8, Yellow thinks that there won't be enough Mythium available to get him, and he upgrades the Antler, which is still good on 13, and will buff all of his tank's defense for future waves. He makes the right play as there is no send here, and everybody holds. Wave 14, and Red is getting really nervous. He goes for a last second double Imp and eventual Brute after income. Not sure how good the Imps are, as Yellow has shown Canopies and Green Devils, and you have to assume that he upgrades these to tank for his Vulcan. And that's exactly what he does, and it's time to see how it plays out. Because of a looter being a bit too close to the gun, it doesn't split tank at all, but it's much better than the gun dying. After all the tanks die, it's just the Vulcan and Halo with 5 units left. The Brute is still alive though, so it will slow the attack speed of the gun, but it's just not enough. The gun dies, but only with a pair of Imps left, and the Halo cleans it up. Red probably sent here, thinking the send from Yellow was coming on Wave 14, as he did have 3 unupgraded gates. Wave 15, and Yellow still hasn't sent yet. If we look at Red's board, we see a very large amount of Impact and Arcane, so we have to assume that he wants to go for that Wave 16 send. Red's got a couple of options here. He can skip this wave and try to prevent Yellow from pushing and just income king on Wave 16. He can full send here, hoping Yellow push off that last wave, or he can income king here and try to get his king a little bit stronger. He goes for the income king on 15, which does allow Yellow to push some workers for his Wave 16 send. Probably the worst situation for Red to be in. Nobody leaks on 15, and it's finally time for Yellow to send. Remember, he hasn't sent since that Ghost Knight on Wave 8. Wave 16, and Yellow did push really hard for this send. and he can afford it because he's going to gain the money from 740 Mythium that he's sending. Yellow tries to add whatever he can, but besides those Trinity Archers, he has pure impact, which is terrible for the wave. The Siege Ram actually does tank one of the archers on the split, which is really not great for red. The Pack and Centaur help to quickly take out all the unupgraded units, and we see a big leak. Yellow only received income in King, and actually ends up leaking 2 creeps. Wouldn't be enough to kill him, as that one regen did get his King back up to 7% HP. Maybe if red had full send with just 2 brutes, he could have won the race. But yeah, that was an incredible game to cast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Yellow went from a 10% chance to win to pulling it off, barely holding just enough from every send from red just not to die. I've done a lot of these and have an incredible series from 3,000 plus players, so let me know if you want to see some more of these before the tournament. Sorry this video is a day late, but it turns out it takes a lot of time and effort to organize a tournament. Who knew? Be sure to join us on October 12th at 1 PM Eastern Time for some incredible games.